Jack ran through the rain, his clothes soaked and clinging to his skin. The wind roared like a wild animal, shaking trees and sending branches flying through the air. His boots splashed in the mud as he pushed forward, one hand holding his jacket. Over his head, the news had warned everyone to leave the coast. The hurricane was coming faster than expected. But Jack didn't leave. Not yet. His dog Max had run off during the chaos. And Jack wouldn't leave without him. The small town of Edgewater was nearly empty now. Shops were boarded up, cars were gone, and not a single soul walked the streets. Jack called out for Max as thunder cracked above him. No answer, just the sound of the wind and distant sirens. His heart pounded not from fear of the storm, but from something deeper. Something didn't feel right. This storm was too sudden, too strong, like it had a mind of its own. As he searched near the cliffs outside town, Jack spotted a strange mound half buried in the earth. Lightning flashed and lit up the shape. It wasn't a rock. It was a metal door, square-shaped, rusted but solid, curious and desperate. Jack grabbed the handle and pulled. The door creaked open, revealing a dark stairway that led underground. "Better than staying out here," he muttered, stepping inside. The wind slammed the door shut behind him, plunging the space into darkness. He used his phone's flashlight to guide himself down the stairs. The air was warm and dry, almost too warm. It didn't smell like dust or mold, but something else, something old and electric, at the bottom of the stairs. He entered a large hallway made of smooth black stone. It looked nothing like a human shelter. There were strange markings on the walls. Glowing softly like dim stars, Jack felt a chill not from cold, but from realization. This place wasn't made by humans. Still, the storm above was too dangerous. He decided to wait it out here until morning. He found a dry corner and sat down, pulling Max's collar from his pocket. "I'll find you," he whispered. "Just hang on." Then he heard it. A voice, low and dry, echoing through the chamber. It wasn't shouting, it was whispering. Jack stood up slowly, shining his light toward the sound. He followed a narrow hallway until he came to a thick metal door. The voice came from behind it, repeating the same sentence. "My fast ends today." Jack stepped back, unsure if he should run or answer. He knocked once on the door. Silence. Then the voice again, louder, clearer, and definitely real. "My fast ends today." Jack's fingers trembled as he touched the control panel beside the door. Sizingly, it lit up at his touch. The door hissed and slid open slowly, revealing a circular room lit by a red glow.
Ow.
In the center floated a figure in a glass-like field. Suspended in the air, it was a woman or something close to it. Her skin was pale gold, her eyes shut, and her body wrapped in a smooth, glowing material. Cables connected her to the ceiling and floor, and strange machines pulsed around her. Jack stared, unsure if he was dreaming. The moment felt frozen in time. Then her eyes opened. They were not human, no whites, just deep glowing silver. She looked at Jack, and though her lips barely moved, he heard her again. "My fast ends today." Jack's flashlight flickered. The machines around the chamber began to hum. A deep vibration shook the ground as the storm raged above. She raised her hand slightly, and the field around her began to fade. Jack backed away, nearly tripping over a pipe. "What are you?" he asked, his voice barely louder than the wind outside. The being tilted her head. "You are not what I expected," she said softly. Then she smiled, not a warm smile, but one of recognition, outside. The hurricane grew stronger, but inside. That bunker, something older and more dangerous, was waking up, and Jack had just become a part of it. Jack stood frozen in the doorway, staring at the strange woman inside the glowing chamber. Her silver eyes never blinked, never looked away. She hovered in midair, connected to thick black cables that pulsed with faint blue light. Her voice still echoed in Jack's head, though her lips barely moved. "My fast ends today," she had said, like a promise, not a warning. Jack slowly stepped back, but the door behind him had already sealed shut with a heavy click. He was trapped. Still, the air in the room was warm and calm. So different from the chaos of the storm above. It almost felt welcoming, or like something was luring him closer. "What is this place?" Jack whispered, more to himself than to her. To his surprise, she answered, "This is my prison." She said gently, "And now it is your shelter." He didn't move closer. But he didn't run either. Her voice had a strange comfort in it, like an old memory he didn't remember having. She lowered slowly, the glowing field around her fading until her feet touched the ground. No alarms went off, no sparks or danger, just silence. Jack's heart thudded in his chest. The woman stood tall, nearly 6 feet, with skin that shimmered slightly like liquid gold. She wore no armor, no weapons, only a long robe made of a material Jack had never seen before. It moved like mist but looked like stone. "I was not expecting a human," she said, tilting her head. Jack stepped back cautiously. "I wasn't expecting any of this." She didn't laugh, but her eyes sparkled with something close to amusement. "My name is HFY," she said. "I have been asleep for 300 of your years. Why?" Jack asked, confused and afraid. "Punishment," she replied, walking slowly toward one of the control panels on the wall. Her hands glided across the symbols, alien language Jack couldn't read, but they lit up with her touch. "Are you human?" he asked. HFY turned to face him. "No," she said softly, "but I was made to understand them, to speak like them, to think like them." Jack frowned. "That doesn't make sense." "No," she replied, "it doesn't not." Yet the lights in the room shifted from red to soft white, and the walls began to pulse with life. Jack noticed more than just machines. There were murals. Stories carved into the walls in glowing paint. They showed beings like HFY standing beside creatures that looked human. Some were fighting, some kneeling, some merging into one. "What is this place?" Jack repeated. "A gate," she answered. "A tomb, a shrine, a mistake." Her answers gave him no comfort, but somehow he couldn't look away. Jack followed her gaze to the far wall, where a large circular door was sealed tight with layers of old mechanisms. Behind that door, she said, was the reason she fasted. "I made a vow not to feed," she said, her voice lowering, "not to take life, not to wake what sleeps. And now?" Jack asked. She turned slowly to him. "Now you are here." Jack didn't like the way she said that. It wasn't a threat, but it wasn't safe either. "I didn't come here on purpose," he said. "I was running from the storm." HFY looked thoughtful. "No one finds this place by accident." Jack looked confused. "But I didn't even know it existed. Something brought you here." She whispered, more to herself than to him. "Perhaps your blood remembers." Jack's skin prickled at her words. "My blood?" HFY walked toward him slowly, her hands open, showing she meant no harm. "You look like the ones I once knew, but your scent, it's different, stronger." Jack stepped back, bumping into one of the strange glowing machines. "Don't be afraid," she said gently. "I will not harm you." "You said your fast ends today," Jack reminded her. She nodded, "Yes." "What does that mean?" "Means," she said, "I have waited long enough." Just then, the room trembled slightly, a soft rumble like thunder deep underground. The lights flickered and dimmed, and something in the walls shifted. HFY turned quickly toward the sealed door, her calm expression turning cold. "He stirs," she whispered. "He should not wake yet." "Who?" Jack asked, backing away from the door. HFY turned toward him with urgency in her voice. "We must seal this place again," she said, "or something worse than the storm will come." But it was too late. From the other side of the sealed wall, a voice deeper than HFY's echoed faintly. "Too late," it said. "The human has arrived." Jack's blood ran cold. The hurricane outside had driven him into this bunker. But now he wondered if it had been more than a storm. Maybe it was a key, and he was the hand that turned it. Jack stood in silence as the deep voice echoed through the chamber. The walls of the bunker seemed to hum with energy, like they were alive. He turned to HFY, his voice shaking. "What was that?" She didn't answer right away. Her silver eyes stared at the sealed door, her face pale. "That voice," she whispered, "was not meant to return." Jack could feel his heartbeat in his throat. He didn't understand what was going on, but every part of him screamed that something was wrong. HFY finally looked at him, her voice low. "There were 2 of us placed here, not one," she said. "I was the watcher, and the other." Jack asked. She hesitated. "He was the punishment, before Jack could ask more. The floor trembled again, and one of the machines behind him sparked to life. A metal panel slid open from the far wall, revealing a dark hallway filled with red lights and mist. The air changed. It grew heavier, thicker, like something had been sleeping for too long and was now stretching awake. HFY moved toward the hallway slowly, cautiously. Jack grabbed her arm. "You said you were fasting? What does that mean?" She didn't pull away, but she didn't smile either. "My kind does not hunger for food as you do," she said softly. "We hunger for essence, for life, for memory." Jack stepped back, suddenly cold. "You're a killer," he said. "I was," she replied, "until I chose to fast." "Why?" HFY lowered her gaze. "Because I met something worth saving." Before Jack could ask what she meant, another voice boomed from deeper within the hallway. It was the same one from before, louder now, and closer. Human scent detected. It said, "Protocol, consumption approved." Jack's legs refused to move. The words hit him like a hammer. Consumption. That thing wasn't just waking up, it was hunting. HFY turned to him sharply. "You must listen to me now, Jack." Nodded slowly, unsure if he had a choice. "That thing Valet doesn't care what you are, only what you have." "What do I have?" Jack asked. "Potential," she said. "Memories locked in your blood." Suddenly, the hallway lights behind them burst, and a long shadow stretched into the room. Jack saw a massive shape move through the mist-tall. Armored and breathing like a machine, two glowing eyes opened in the dark. Red like fire, Vale had awakened. HFY stepped in front of Jack, her body tense. "Vale," she said loudly, "you were not meant to wake." The creature stepped forward, its voice deep and metallic. "Neither were you." Jack's mouth went dry. Vale looked like something from a nightmare, a mix of machine and beast. His body covered in ancient scars, parts of him glowed, parts of him bled steam, and when he spoke, the sound made Jack's ears ache. "I smell the human," Vale said, his eyes locked on Jack. HFY raised her hand, and a wave of blue energy pushed Vale back a step. "You will not touch him," she said sharply. Vale laughed, a sound that echoed through the walls like a scream. "You think he is yours?" "He is not yours either," HFY replied. The tension in the air grew so thick that Jack could barely breathe. He took a slow step back, unsure whether to run or hide. But then Vale's eyes narrowed. Why protect him? HFY did not answer. Instead, she turned to Jack, her voice softer. "Do you trust me?" Jack hesitated, his thoughts spinning. She was an alien, a prisoner, someone who once fed on life itself, but she had not harmed him, not even when she had the chance. And now, she was standing between him and a monster. "Yes," Jack whispered, surprising even himself. HFY nodded once, then reached into a small panel on the wall. She pressed a glowing circle, and a hidden door opened on the side. "This way," she said. "Hurry." Jack ran after her, just as Vale lunged forward. A blast of blue energy exploded behind them, throwing Vale back with a roar. The hallway they entered was narrow and full of flickering lights. Machines buzzed to life around them as they passed, recording their steps, reading their pulses. The bunker was no longer asleep. As they reached a second chamber, HFY sealed the door behind them. Jack collapsed on the floor, breathing hard. "What is he?" he asked. "An old weapon," she said, "made to consume and destroy." "And what am I?" Jack asked, his voice trembling. HFY looked at him for a long time. "I don't know yet," she whispered. "But you are not just human." Jack stared at her, confused, frightened, but also curious. Was this why he had found the bunker? Was this why Max had gone missing? Is this why the storm had pushed him here? Outside, the hurricane still roared, but inside the bunker, something even more powerful had awakened, and Jack was no longer just a survivor. He was part of something. Ancient, dangerous, and hungry. The chamber they entered was round, quiet, and glowing with soft green light. Symbols danced across the walls, shifting like waves, moving like they were alive. Jack sat against the cold wall, trying to breathe, trying to understand what had just happened. He had seen things that didn't belong on Earth, creatures that whispered ancient words, machines that responded to his presence, and a war that hadn't ended, had just been forgotten. HFY stood in front of a wide, glowing console, her hands moving across the controls. Lines of energy traveled from the floor to the ceiling, humming with power. "What is this place?" Jack finally asked, his voice barely louder than a whisper. Shia didn't turn around, but she answered. "This is a memory vault," she said. "A place that stores truth." The walls changed, revealing scenes like floating pictures holograms. Filled with sound and movement, Jack saw ships the size of mountains floating in space. He saw beings like Ashaya leading armies, and creatures like Vale destroying entire planets. And then he saw humans, but not like him. They were taller, stronger, dressed in strange armor. Their eyes glowed and their hands burned with light. "That's not us," Jack said, confused. "It was," Shia replied long ago. She stepped beside him and touched the wall. A new image appeared Earth, but not as Jack knew it. There were no cities, no oceans in the right place, just fire, metal, and ruin. Then the image shifted again. To Earth now. Peaceful, quiet, asleep, you. "We're part of something great," she said, "but it was taken from you." Jack looked at her. "Why?" "Because the galaxy feared what you could become," she answered. Jack shook his head. "I'm just a mechanic. I fix engines. I don't even believe in aliens. You don't have to believe." She said, "Your blood remembers even." "If your mind does not." Jack stood up and stepped closer to the wall, watching the ancient battles. The humans fought side by side with Shaya's kind, but something changed. He saw betrayal, burning worlds, and humans turning against their allies. Then came the purge, memories erased, history rewritten. The truth buried beneath centuries. "This isn't in any book," Jack muttered. "No," Ashaya said. "It was hidden so well that even your kind forgot it ever happened." Jack's eyes narrowed. "And you were part of this." Ashaya nodded slowly. "I led one of the last resistance groups against the cleansing." "But you lost." "Yes," she said. "And so I chose silence. I slept, and I waited." Jack stepped back, unsure what to think. "You waited for what?" Ashaya looked at him with eyes that seemed older than the stars. "For you," she said. The room suddenly shook, and the lights flickered again. Jack looked around. "Is it him?" Ashaya nodded. "Vale is close. He can smell your awakening." "My what?" Jack asked. "You are starting to remember," she said. "Not with thoughts, but with instincts." Jack felt it too. His hands tingled. His heart beat faster than it should. Even the machines around him seemed to react to his presence. Doors opened without touch. Lights responded to his voice, and when he placed his hand on the wall, it glowed brighter than Ashaya's. "What am I?" he asked again. Ashaya studied him, then whispered, "You may be the last of the prime kind." Before Jack could speak, a voice boomed through the chamber. Vale had found them, human, he roared. "You belong to me now." Ashaya turned quickly to the console, pressing a series of buttons. A hidden door opened in the floor, revealing a narrow tunnel leading deeper underground. "This is our only way out," she said. "Follow me." Jack hesitated. "Why me? Why now?" Ashaya answered without turning. "'Cause the galaxy will wake again. It remembers your kind," as they climbed down the tunnel. Jack looked back at the memory vault. The images were fading, but he burned them into his mind. He was no longer just a man running from a storm. He was walking into a forgotten war, one that had only been waiting for a reason to return. The tunnel was cold and narrow, carved from black stone that pulsed faintly with energy. Jack followed Ashaya down the steep path, his hands brushing against the glowing walls. He didn't ask where they were going. He was still trying to understand. Where he had been behind him, he could still hear Vale's voice echoing through the bunker like thunder. But the sound was getting fainter, not because he was slowing down, but because something else had stirred. This tunnel wasn't here. "Before," Jack whispered, "it wasn't supposed to open," Ashaya replied. "Only if both of us woke. So you and Vale." "Yes," she said, "but something is wrong. Something else has awakened." The tunnel led to a wide room, round like the memory vault, but darker. In the center, stood a platform surrounded by 7 tall metallic pods. 6 were closed, glowing faintly, but one was cracked open, steam pouring from the edges. Jack stepped forward slowly, feeling the pull of the place. "What are these?" he asked. Esha's face turned grim. "Weapons, like Veil." "No," she said, worse. She approached the cracked pod and waved her hand over the controls. Symbols flashed across the surface, some red, some gold, all unfamiliar. To Jack, this was not meant to open, she muttered. Not yet, inside the broken pod. Jack saw nothing but darkness, but he could feel that something had been there. Something had left recently. "Is it another one of your kind?" asked Ashaya, shook her head. "No. Then what?" She hesitated, her voice soft. "A creature made from war." "Not born into it." Jack turned around, suddenly alert. "You're telling me something was built just for killing?" "Yes," Ashaya said. "The ancients called them the Hollow." Onesie swallowed hard. "Where is it now?" "I don't know," she whispered. "But if it woke, it's already watching us." As she spoke, the lights above flickered. The bunker groaned like it was breathing again. The air felt heavier, colder. Jack reached for the side of the pod, trying to steady himself. His fingers brushed against a strange marca symbol, glowing under the surface. Suddenly, a sharp pulse ran through his body. He gasped and fell back, his mind filled with images, not memories. Not dreams, but pieces of something ancient. A battlefield under 2 suns, a tower made of bones, a voice screaming through metal, and in the center, something wearing a human shape. But not a human at all. Jack's eyes snapped open, and Ashaya was already at his side. "You touched it," she said, worried. "I saw things," he said, breathless. "Things I can't explain." "I connected with it," she said. "That means it recognized you." Jack stood slowly. "Recognized me as what?" "As the next vessel?" Jack backed away from her. "No. I didn't ask for any of this." Ashaya stepped closer. "Neither did I." Her voice was firm, now not angry, but commanding. "Do you think I wanted to sleep for centuries in darkness? Do you think I wanted to wake up in a world that forgot me?" Jack looked down, speechless. "You have a choice, Jack," she said. "But not for long." Suddenly a loud screech cut through the silence. Not metal, not wind, but something. In between, the lights in the room turned red, and the walls began to shift. The Hollow One was near. Shea grabbed Jack's wrist, her grip strong. "We need to move now." They rushed through a side tunnel that led deeper into the bunker's core. Behind them, the sound of footsteps echoed slow, heavy, unnatural, as they ran. Jack turned back for a second and caught a glimpse of it, a figure in the shadows, tall and twisted, its face hidden behind a smooth mask. Its body was made of black armor fused with flesh, and its eyes if they were eyes burned with hunger. They reached a sealed chamber. Neshia slammed her hand on the panel. The door hissed shut behind them, locking them inside. Jack leaned against the wall, gasping for breath. "Why me?" he asked again, his voice shaking. Ishaya looked at him and finally said the words she had held back. "Because you are the key." Jack blinked. "To what?" "To opening the vault," she said, "and to ending it." The chamber lit up around them, showing carvings of a human holding a burning star. Creatures knelt before him, and even hollow ones turned away. Jack stared at the image, realizing the face in the carving looked like him. "Not just similar, but exact." "I don't understand." "Said you will," Ishaya whispered, "because the war never ended." Jack, it was only sleeping. Jack stood in the center of the glowing chamber. Surrounded by walls that whispered history, the carvings shimmered with hidden meaning stars burning, creatures kneeling, and a human holding something like a sun in his hand, his face carved in stone thousands of years before he was born. It made no sense, and yet something deep inside him said it was real. Behind him, Ashia stared at the image with quiet fear. "You were never meant to see this," she said. Jack turned to her, confused and angry. "You keep saying I'm the key. The last of something. What does that even mean?" Ashaya walked slowly toward him, her voice calm. "You are the last imprint of the prime kind," she said. "The first humans designed to command, to lead, To survive anything, Jack stepped back. I fix cars. I am not a leader. She tilted her head. Not yet. Suddenly, the lights dimmed, and a deep, grating sound filled the chamber. The air turned thick and cold. The Hollow One had found them.
Ow.
A voice echoed through the walls, metallic, broken, yet sharp as a blade. 2 traitors? 1 vessel? It growled. One will open, one will burn. HFY turned toward the sealed door, her body tense. We don't have time, she said. He's inside the system now. Before Jack could ask what she meant, the walls of the room began to shift. Stone peeled away like paper, revealing ancient machines with sharp spinning cores. A panel rose from the floor between them, pulsing with heat. HFY pointed at it. Put your hand there. Jack hesitated. What is it? A test, she said. The vault must know you. He stepped forward slowly and pressed his palm to the panel. The reaction was instant. A burst of white light shot into the ceiling and the machine stopped humming. The carvings on the wall changed. They now showed Jack holding a different object. Not a sun, a sword. Jack pulled his hand away. Breathless. What was that? The vault accepts you, HFY said. It will answer your command, but it must be your choice. Before Jack could speak, the wall behind them exploded. Vale stepped through the rubble, smoke curling around his armored body, his red eyes. Locked onto Jack, you activated it, he growled. Jack raised his hands. I didn't know what I was doing. You were never meant to know, Vale said, stepping forward. Stand down, HFY warned, her hands glowing blue. But Vale laughed. You don't scare me anymore? Another crash echoed behind them, and the Hollow One entered tall, silent. Its blade arms scraping the walls. It looked at HFY, then at Vale. Then finally at Jack. Vessel confirmed. It whispered, Transfer begins. No, Jack said, stepping back. HFY threw up a shield of light between Jack and the Et. Creature Vale launched forward, attacking it with brute force. The 2 monsters collided with a sound like thunder, metal on metal. Energy crackling in the air, sparks lit the room, and the ground shook beneath their feet. Jack ducked as debris fell from the ceiling. Tell me what to do, he shouted. HFY reached for his arm. You have to choose, Jack. Choose. What? Whose truth to follow, she said. Vale believes in strength. He will use you to destroy. The Hollow One seeks control. It will consume you and you. Jack asked. HFY looked into his eyes. I believe you can choose another way. Jack stared at the Chaos Vale, fighting like a beast. The Hollow One moving like a shadow, and in between. Him just a mechanic from a broken town, or so he thought. A panel opened behind him, glowing brighter than the others. Inside it was a strange device, a small sphere, pulsing like a heartbeat. HFY whispered. That is the core. Jack reached for it. What does it do? It ends this, she said, one way or another. Jack grabbed the core. And the room went silent. The Hollow One froze, its body shaking. Vale turned, his red eyes wide. You don't know what you hold, he warned. I don't need to. Jack said, I just need to end this. The core responded to Jack's voice. Growing brighter in his hand, symbols flew through the air, ancient language circling his head like stars. The machines all bowed to the light, so did HFY. And even Vale. Only the Hollow One stood defiant, but it began to crumble at the edges. You are no vessel, it said. No, Jack answered. I'm human. He slammed the core into the floor, and the chamber lit up like a supernova. A shockwave of light burst through the bunker, wiping the Hollow One from existence. When the light faded, only silence remained. The storm outside was gone, and so was the darkness within. The light faded slowly, like a sunrise after a long, endless night. The chamber that once shook with chaos now stood silent and still. Machines had shut down, symbols had dimmed. And the air no longer hummed with tension. Jack stood alone in the center, the glowing core gone from his hand. Melted into the floor like it had never existed, his body trembled not from fear, but from the weight of what he had done. HFY stood nearby, her golden skin marked with cracks of faint light. She looked at him with something close to awe. You ended it, she whispered. Jack shook his head. Reacted, no, she said softly. You chose. Vale sat against the far wall, his armor cracked, his breath shallow. Even he designed for war seemed stunned. You were not supposed to win, he said, his voice weak. Jack walked slowly toward him, not with anger, but curiosity. Then why did I? Vale stared at him. Because the core knew you. He coughed once, then leaned back. It remembered your kind. Jack sat beside him in silence. All the noise, the voices, the ancient machines, they were gone now. It felt like the storm, both inside and outside, had passed. He looked at his hands, now still faintly glowing with the energy of the core. I'm not the same, he said. No, Escher replied. Stepping closer, you're more now. They walked out of the chamber. The hall's strangely quiet. The bunker had shifted, its walls no longer threatening, but calm. It welcomed them now, or maybe it just understood. When they reached the surface, the steel hatch opened with a soft hiss. The sky above was clear, washed clean by the hurricane that had vanished as quickly as it came. Jack stepped outside and looked around. The town of Edgewater was damaged, roofs torn, trees snapped, but still there, and so was Max, his dog, standing near the edge of the cliff, tail wagging like he'd been waiting all along. Jack laughed for the first time in days. Max ran to him, barking happily, and Jack knelt to hug him tight. You brought me here, didn't you? He whispered into the dog's fur. You always had better instincts than me. HFY stood behind him, looking out over the ocean. The waves were calm, the sky a bright blue. She closed her eyes and smiled faintly. For 300 years. I waited for this day, she said. Jack looked at her. What happens now? She turned to him. That depends on you. He blinked. Me? Yes, she said. You carry the memory now, just of what happened. But what could happen again? Jack stood slowly. I'm not a hero, HFY. I'm just... She held up a hand. You're human, and that, she said with pride, is enough. Behind them. The ground trembled faintly, not with danger, but change. Something deep beneath the earth had shifted, like the last page of a book. Turning itself, the bunker door closed silently, as if sealing away a chapter of history. Jack looked to the sky and saw movement, faint glints of silver and black far above the clouds. Satellites, ships, or watchers, it was hard to tell, but something was out there, and they had felt what happened. The war wasn't returning, not yet, but the galaxy was now watching. Jack turned back to HFY. Will they come for me? She nodded slowly. Some will fear you, some will worship, and some will try to erase you. Jack sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. Typical. HFY smiled. But you won't be alone. He looked down at Max. Then back to the horizon. His quiet life in Edgewater was over. But a new life, one filled with forgotten truths, rising storms, and ancient powers had just begun. Jack picked up a small stone from the ground and tossed it into the sea. Ripples spread out. Soft but endless. Behind him, HFY whispered. The galaxy will remember your name. Jack smirked. Then I better make it worth remembering. As they walked away from the cliff's edge, the wind picked up gently, not the kind that brought destruction, but the kind that whispered change. The hurricane was gone, but the storm it awakened inside Jack would echo forever.